Hello, everyone. Stuff is already going a bit weird. As you all can see, I am nowhere near where I usually am. As I said, if you follow us on Twitter, I am not in Athens, but we somehow made it work because as much as everyone needs a break, sometimes we both miss this, and a lot has happened, and especially given that this is episode big 100, because goddamn, we made it to 100 main episodes, which is even crazier. Just a forewarning of this episode, I've been told that my audio is more or less fine, but the setup in general is nowhere near what it usually is, so I may crash out and come back at some point, hoping it doesn't happen. But aside that, we'll make the best of what we can, like usual. And thankfully, I'm not alone, finally. It's been a bit, man,
Yeah,
especially live. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Just like you were saying, it's summer. Both of us are kind of caught in the dog days, being both in really uncomfortable weather and just life in general being a bit crazy. But it's good to be back, and glad we're making it work for the big 100.
Had to, but I have a feeling that we always somehow will make it work. Today is also a special day in the nominations for the FCA's ending. Today was the final day of a possibility of putting people up for nominations. So in the next few days, do expect news as well about whether we made it, whether the other boys made it, and what to do next. The announcement had come out. I just hadn't seen it that the final will be in Elland Road, Leeds United Stadium, on the 20th of November. So keep your eye out for more announcements, whether from the actual FCAs or from one of us as well. But aside the general news and the life, as you said, the last month being more chaotic than it's been in a while for us, I think the last general news worth mentioning, because we haven't really talked about it live, is that your October trip has now been solidified for what, about a month?
Yeah, so planned at end of June, so it's probably a month and a half by this point, but really looking forward to that. Obviously, we'll be fingers crossed able to go to Olympiacos Ike on the 26th of October. And then obviously, we'll do what we can, whether that's a vlog or a show or maybe both, live and in person. But it'll be really exciting for the show. It'll be really exciting for us meeting in person for the first time. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, been for what now? Been about a year and a half to two.
Yeah, I think it was right after the Fenerbahce tie last year that you found me. So I
It was
believe
right after.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's been we're
Because
getting
I
close to a year and a half.
started. Yeah, because I started with Ferencvaros, I'm pretty sure. So it was a couple of weeks after, so it's a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's gonna be at the very, very minimum, very, very exciting.
sure. Yeah,
Speaking of exciting, go on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
no, I
to
was
cut
just
you.
gonna say I've been thinking about it nonstop, so it'll be fun.
And we've planned a lot, that's for sure. Uh, Speaking of exciting, because it is exciting, the how the preseason in general went. Because I think up until at least the time managed to cover, and as it continued as well, I think it's safe to say that this one felt very different, especially with how the last, without wanting to exaggerate too much, how the last three have felt. how the last maybe 4 have felt. Because I think the main thing that there is to say is because of Mendilibar himself, it felt like there was a plan there. It felt like there was a plan everywhere. We saw more friendlies than ever. Like we saw 9 friendlies in total. We saw friendlies with the champions of Italy and the Champions League finalists, which God knows how long it's been since we've had such a proper friendly. Maybe something is keeping my mind, but I can't remember such a big test, especially right before the season starts.
I feel
But
like
we've seen it with
I was going to
go
say, I
on.
feel like the last time we had such high profile friendlies was, I believe it was 2014, 15. Remember when we played in the International Champions Cup? But I believe that was right after we had made it to the Champions League knockouts. So I think, to your point, it's
Yeah,
been a
because
long time.
wasn't that the last year that we made the knockouts without needing to qualify as well?
I can't
Or was
remember.
that a year before?
I can't remember. I mean, I know that it was. I know for a fact it was after like the 2014 World Cup. So it was either that summer of 2014 or it was 2015. But to your point, like I think it's been a while since we've had such high profile friendlies, partially because our overall standing and standard did slip quite a bit as far as how we were competing in Europe. But kind of to the point of the stability that's been brought in by Mendilibar, us winning the Conference League, us, competing very well last year in the Europa League, finishing top 8. I think all of these things are going to help us get some more of those high-profile matches. I mean, yesterday, that friendly, I wasn't able to watch it because I had stuff going on, but that friendly was televised in the United States. And Olympiacos preseason friendly was
Really?
yes, it was televised on CBS Paramount. I saw that when I was looking at the score. I was like, there's no way. It's probably been a solid decade since we had, probably back to the International Champions Cup, that we had a friendly that was televised internationally. This one was. So, I mean, it's exciting that we're able to be playing in these games. And I think we'll talk about that in a moment, just kind of the reactions and takeaways. But it's really big for us to be playing in even seemingly these meaningless games because it gives us exposure.
It's what we've more or less been saying behind the scenes. We are just simply levels above everyone else now in everything, and that's got to do with, of course, the Conference League, with how stuff has shifted behind the scenes at the club with all the changes, with such a coach as Mendilibar coming in, with the difference in the academy, with how we've treated transfers in and out now, because we've gone from negotiating with God knows what clubs to now the biggest in Europe, both for ins and outs. We're moving to a direction that we should have moved a while ago. But the phrase that can be said now is better late than never. Right?
Yeah. No,
I
I mean,
mean, whichever way you put it as well. Truly been, I think, in every aspect. That's safe to
well,
say.
and like you mentioned at the beginning, I mean, look how much further ahead we are than anyone else in Greece to start with. And I would argue further ahead than a lot of teams outside of the top 5 to 8 leagues in Europe. I mean, really, if you think about it, what club outside of the top 5 in like Portugal and Belgium making it work? I mean, outside of probably those 7, 8 top leagues, Olympiacos are probably not only the most competitive right now, the best run, the most stable. I mean, the crazy thing is we've gone from the depths of hell not even 2 years ago. I mean, losing European matches 5-0 to now being at this point where we're qualifying automatically for Europe. We haven't played a European qualifier in 2 years. I mean, that's part of going back to even like how the preseason has felt odd. It's felt odd for all the good reasons, because we're not preparing for Europe, because we're not going to play a European match for another month. We're not having to integrate 17,000 new signings. We're not having to learn a coach's new system. We're not having to try to beg all of our best players to come back. I mean, you look at where we are this season compared to last, we have our core together. We were able to go out this summer and target some key needs. And I think other than maybe center back so far, we have those filled or in the pipeline to be filled. So, and everything, like you said, from the ins to the outs, like all of it has made perfect sense. And it's been, good negotiations, strong negotiations from a point of, we're not going to get pushed around. I think you and I might have had some differing opinions on the Bobby's transfer, but even then, right, I think that comes from a place of us having super high expectations and standards. If you look at that in a vacuum, I mean, the fact that we got what it ended up being 30 million up front for an 18-year-old, a fresh 18-year-old, he turned 18 like a week before the transfer. That's saying something. I mean, you have other clubs in Greece. You look at Panathinaikos. They're hoping to get 25 million for Fotis Ioannidis, who's basically in his prime at this point. That says a lot. And in previous years, I mean, there's no way we would have sold Babis Kostoulas for that price, and that's even a price that we felt like we could have gotten more. So I think the fact that not only we're making all of the right decisions, but the fact that it's genuinely feasible that we could be doing even better than that in the future. It just speaks to the direction this club is going. And I think there's every reason to be positive. And I think once we talk about the friendlies, we can get into that some more as well, because I think there's a lot of people who really do not appreciate the position that we're in. But it's really exciting for this season, and really exciting to see us back in the Champions League, because I think this Champions League campaign is going to be different from any other Olympiacos campaign in this competition. I really genuinely believe that we are going to be very competitive.
One thing that's certain is that no team is going to have an easy time with us. Like you said, like it was happening a couple of years ago. And this Champions League campaign is certainly one that I am anticipating more than anyone in my 13 years of watching this thing. Also, another very certainly interesting thing, to say the least. And as much of a meme as he's become lately, especially in England, you have to give props to Marinakis, right? Because for all the criticism that he rightfully, in my opinion, just ate straight to the face a couple of years ago with everything from how the club was to how he was being affected from everyone around him to just economically putting the club in a slumber that we needed, as it seems, 3 years to get out of, which I do believe that we're not just out of the woods just yet fully, but I do believe that we are very, very close to being completely out of the woods in terms of like financial issues and stuff. To him just cutting everything from the club structure, and while not landing every replacement immediately, and I'm not talking coaches, I'm mostly talking backroom stuff, getting there with the last severely good addition being Edu Gaspar, and an addition that, as you said, has been very underappreciated in my opinion, and arguably our best scouter in a lot of years, and that's Christos Akas, who we brought in from Feyenoord, who's found, I'm pretty sure, all of our signings, mostly, and it's become a bit of an inside joke as well that whoever Akas follows will probably come to the club eventually. And it's it's props as well for how he's treated the whole Mendilibar situation, because it's rare to see not only a Greek club, not only specifically us who had changed, especially with, I'm pretty sure that the 8 coaches that we changed before Mendilibar is still one of the negative records of Greek football in general. But for Marinakis himself, who is known to cut coaches immediately, to handle Mendilibar not only with such respect, but to give him the freedom of having the squad he needs, not always going for his targets because that's Greek clubs in general, but listening to his needs and letting him, Edu, and the cast just take the reins in the direction of the club going. And let's not, as much as I don't want to give him too much credit, the whole result of the endless academy structure that we now have and will have for a while, as much as I don't like Nottingham's general involvement in some moves like Silla leaving earlier this summer, as I talked about, it's all just steps on the ladder of not just a situation that is to be more than appreciated, in my opinion, but a situation where we've not even seen anywhere near the best of where this club is. And to just steer the direction a bit more to the friendlies as well. I mean, hell, we stood toe to toe with last year's Champions League finalists, and with a beating.
I mean, that's my biggest takeaway, and I saw a lot of crazy takes, especially after the Napoli game. Not as much after Inter. I tried, man. There's no effort put into this, but thank you. It was mostly after the Napoli game. I didn't really see anything yesterday, but I was kind of running around. A lot of people that were seemingly overly critical and worried based on that result and that performance that we were not going to be able to compete in the Champions League. And that was my first thing that I pointed out is, listen, both of these clubs, Napoli and Inter, they played their first team. That is the team that is going to play, that is going to start Champions League games for them. It's going to start derbies and Serie A for them. Like that was their full squad. Both times, as you mentioned, we had some starters, but there was a lot of rotation. There was a lot of backup players playing. There was a lot of young players playing. I mean, Botti started against the Italian champions, and Pascalakis played the second half. I mean, Solakis didn't even play. And for all of that, right, as you said, we went toe-to-toe. There were some pretty questionable refereeing decisions in both matches. And on that vein, in both matches, half of the goals that our opponent scored were 100% offside and would not have stood in a official match with VAR. So
especially Inter.
Yeah.
Especially.
So to me, it's like, I don't look at these games, wanting results, wanting goals, wanting all this stuff. What you want to see from the team is that the fitness is there, the intensity is there, the system is there, they're keeping in good shape. And I think for the most part, obviously none of it was perfect because it's preseason and these guys are not in midseason form. I think all the foundations for this team are there. It looked like the same team that we saw last season with the addition of guys, like Strefetza, for example, like some of the younger players, Panavimonidis, who is just getting integrated, or Vietsikuras. It was the same team as last year, but augmented thoughtfully in the areas that we needed improvements. So, for everyone that's overreacting to these results, I really want to caution that and point out that, again, we were completely mismatched and we still competed. I think if you had an Olympiacos A team, granted, maybe we don't beat these sides, we probably wouldn't, but I think that we would absolutely push them very far. I think getting a result in either of those games against either of those teams would not have been out of the question with a full first side. So I think people just need to kind of calm down. I didn't come away with any real negative impressions from either match. So that's just my take on it. I think people need to chill out and really have some perspective.
The sad thing is that it's probably going to be an impossible take, as we've talked about many times. But all I can come in and say is the exact same. Like I talked to you about, I did have some concerns about concentration, about how some goals came about. For example, the mistake for Napoli's first from Ortega, how we lost the ball sometimes. But when you sit and think about it, it's also a matter of fact of what you said before. That yeah, this team is playing like it's the same team from last season, but there is both changes in tactics and the transfers that need to be integrated. And as you said as well, there is no better teaching moment than a friendly with teams like Napoli and Inter. And I don't think anyone cared about a result, especially Mendilibar, because if Mendilibar cared about the result, he wouldn't have booked friendlies for Napoli and Inter within a time frame of 48 hours. It was a big test for the entirety of the squad. A cut or two more are expected if we think about the signings that will come in, which will probably be not probably, we now know that the Brazilian kid is coming in, and it will probably be a centre back. That's what we more or less have in mind, at least. So if you think about what Mendy asked last season, it's probably going to be another sale. That's what I would guess. And if you think about what he said in not Napoli, we played Alkmaar before Napoli, right? No, we played Union.
Yep.
After, I'm pretty sure he said it after Union that there is still a lot of time in the transfer window, and players will both come and go. So, with there also being no rush, there is clearly decisions that have been taken in arguably the best way possible, right? Because we knew that, especially after that PAOK performance, we knew that Anastopoulos would go. We knew that Vezo would go. We knew that Velde would go. Like, these are things we knew. Still, as confused as I am about the money we did get, I'm still shocked we even made the slightest bit of profit.
I'm surprised we got a fee. I'm surprised we got a fee for him, period. And not only that, Portland designated him, and Portland fans seem convinced that he is like a very good player. Like I've been like half-heartedly arguing with a lot of them on Twitter just because I think it's hilarious. Yeah, that might be the best bit of business that Marinakis and co have ever completed. I do not know how we got a profit for that guy.
It goes back to the point that I made before. The way that the structure of this club has changed over the last year and a half to 2 years. It's mental to even think about in all its details as well, because it's not just Babis, it's not just Velde. We're bringing a mix of players in. How can I say this? But it's clear that we don't need the money this much anymore.
Yeah,
we don't need the fee, and we can spend. I mean, we're taking financial risks for the first time ever since probably COVID. Like, we're spending 7 million on a 20-year-old multi-position attacker from Palmeiras.
For 70% of his rights as well. I mean, we're not even outright buying
back to turn the light back on.
Yeah, like you said, and I mean that goes back to the stability that we brought in. We don't have a bloated squad anymore, as we did a few years ago. I would still say there's some fat to be trimmed, but I mean, you remember 2-3 years ago. I mean, we were sending 25 guys out on loan every year because we just had so many players that were under contract long term.
48 players. I'll never forget the number. 48 players.
I mean, we used to sign 12 players every summer, and they would all be on 3-4 year contracts, and 8 of them would be nowhere near good enough for the squad. I mean, we're able to be a little more cavalier with our finances now because we don't have all of that weighing us down, and because we're qualifying for Europe with more consistency. I mean, this is 2 years in a row that we've qualified directly for Europe. As you mentioned earlier, it's been a decade since we've done that once. And since the last time another Greek club did that, it's been, 15 years? All of that contributes, and it really does add up rather quickly, as we've seen, because like we were talking about, we're not even 2 years removed from some of these, absolute horror shows in Europe, domestically, whatever it is. I mean, it's a long way to come in a really short period of time. And, it goes back to us being smarter, bringing, talent acquisition from, like you said, we're bringing in scouts and, directors from Arsenal and Feyenoord. I mean, look at how those clubs are run. Look at how those clubs perform on the continental stage. Look at the leagues that they're competing in. That's how you raise your level without having to necessarily go out and just buy a bunch of, throw a bunch of money at your squad like you'll see other clubs do. Even looking at clubs like Turkey, for example, or Ukraine, right? You look at the 2 big Ukrainian clubs. They've been struggling for a few years now. Granted, they have some other things going on, but they're still very well funded, right? They still have. I mean, you look at Shakhtar, who just went out to Panathinaikos. Half their squad is Brazilian still. I mean, you look at clubs like Fenerbahce, you look at clubs like Galatasaray. I mean, look at the money they throw around, but they're not run as well. They aren't as thoughtful where they're putting that effort and those resources. And that's what's going to allow Olympiacos to continue to set itself apart from some of these other clubs that might have more resources than us because we're making better use of what we have.
It's what I used to say when we brought Marcelo and James in that year specifically. It's especially that Turkey club round model. I used to call it a soul club. Like, we're not doing stuff just to say that, we brought in this guy, or we can bring in him, and him, and then go on and finish third in the fucking league, right? Or just crash out of the group stages in the Europa League. We're doing stuff both for the now, for example, the Capellas of the world, which I'm still so happy I'm right in being, seemingly at least right in being hyped about that signing. And we're bringing in the Nascimentos of this world as well, which is a 20-year-old kid who has all the future in the world and all the will in the world to improve and all the potential in the world as well. Same for Scipioni, who looks more ready than most of our midfield, but that's a whole different story. And it's the first time in a long time where we not only have the balance of older kids and veterans in the squad, but we have our own boys, which, because I have seen the comment for a while now and I want to talk about it, it's not only just 2-3 talents. It's not even just one starting 11. It's continuous in every single position. For example, we always talk about how this club has always been amazing in producing goalkeepers. We have Jolakis, Paschalakis, Botis, Sina, and the 3 from the academy. We have 8 goalkeepers where, knock on wood, everything goes well. All of them can play for the club. The centre backs, Kalogeropoulos for me has arguably been the surprise of the preseason, along with Pneummonidis and Yatsipouras. Pneummonidis especially, but we'll talk about them both in a bit. We have the consistency of people like Elgabi and Yaremchuk, who look better than ever still, but that's quality we knew that the squad had. And going back to the point that I made earlier, yeah, we need to cover some gaps still, that's clear. And perhaps we need like 1 or 2 replacements from people that are in the squad. We talked about the weak link, and we will again probably. But we have the depth to stand up to teams like Inter. When Inter play with, if I'm not completely mistaken, at least their main squad, you saw Kalogeropoulos completely killing Lautaro. And Kalogeropoulos is meant to be our 5th choice this season. Even though I think with how he's performing, he may be even higher, but that's a different story that's not on paper. How long has it been since we've seen, not only transfer-wise, but a summer and a season preparation go this well in every single aspect?
I mean, I think it's the easiest and smoothest and most stable summer that I've ever seen. And it just goes back to the point of, I mean, we have not had to make wholesale changes to the squad. I mean, it's really just been bringing in complementary pieces. We don't need to bring in a headline talent. We don't need to bring in, some elite big signing. We just need, a few veterans here, guys like Cabela. I mean, bringing in young players like you mentioned, like Scipioni, Nascimento, Tadis now, and then integrating some of the young guys we already have. You don't need to be making 10, 12 signings this summer when you're run this well. You keep your players that you already have. I mean, there's no reason to replace your El Cabis and your Rodines and your Chiquinos of the world. Like, we already had such a solid base and a solid spine to this team that it makes it really easy. And it does help too when you're not having to play competitive matches right now. I mean, you look at, the other Greek clubs, they're still making signings right now. I mean, Ike just bought a striker last week because they didn't really have a striker. I mean, he had to come in and have his 30-minute cameo in a qualifier where they had to win. Thankfully for our coefficient, he scored. But that makes
each Luka Jovic, like, we knew he'd score.
Exactly. I mean, they got really lucky that he was available and that his stock has seemingly dropped so much. I still think that's kind of crazy. Being an Eintracht fan, watching him back in the day, that guy, he scores goals for fun. He could be a real problem in the Super League this season, but they're having to do this on the fly and we're not. And that makes it a lot easier for us to, like we've talked about, make really good, thoughtful signings and not let's rush to get someone over the line because we have a game on Thursday.
You said it as perfectly as possible. I just want to add one thing before we get into the comment that I've been eyeing up. I said it not as a joke, but I said it a bit hopefully that if Chiquinho comes into the season, I said it around May, maybe June. If Chiquinho comes into the season having adjusted his game so much that he can show the quality that he's shown at the 8, now at the 10 and at the winger, he'll probably be our MVP of the season. And what does he go and do? Exactly just that. Chiquinho somehow is hitting because we've talked about the surprises of the preseason, and we will again for sure. We talked about the consistency that this club has. Chiquinho has somehow not only gone on to be one of the surprises every single game in, game out, but he's arguably gone on to be the biggest bargain in this club's history. Because, mind you, the only fee, if I remember correctly, on the dot that we paid for Chiquinho was less than $1 million. I'm pretty sure it was $500,000 to bring him in 6 months early and not on the pre-contract that we had agreed. I'm pretty sure that's the only fee we paid for Chiquinho.
Yeah, I would say that El Kabi was a free transfer, wasn't he?
El Kabi was a free.
Okay, so I mean, I would say other than Ayub El Kabi, which I mean, I think that's very high standards. I would definitely agree with you that he's probably top 3 bargains this club has ever made. You and I have talked about Chiquinho extensively over the past year and a half or whatever it's been. I would already argue that last season he was well in that conversation for our MVP, most important player. I mean, he does everything, and you can put him wherever. I mean, you could put him even deeper in midfield, and I guarantee you he would do a job. You could put him on the wing. We've seen him do it on the wing and be great. He scores goals. He's involved defensively. He's involved in possession. He's like everything. He's just one of those guys that comes through, and whatever the manager asks him to do, he'll do it exceptionally well. And I think one thing that hasn't been talked about with Chiquinho is he has really stepped up into that Fortunis role that we lost last season. And that was a major concern, right, for both of us. I mean, you're losing your captain, you're losing this guy who's been at the club for 10 years and has been your talisman the entire time, highs and lows. You know, I was really concerned of where are we going to find that production? Where are we going to find that involvement? Chiquinho stepped up last season and gave us all of that. I mean, the season he had last season would be one to make Fortunis proud. So I don't think there's superlatives that they go far enough for Chiquinho. And like you said, this season especially, he's going to be even more important for a Champions League, for example. You think back to our last campaigns in the Champions League. I know it's been a while. Who was always that one guy who really allowed us to compete? It was always Konstantinos Fortunis. Chiquinho is going to be filling that role. And I mean, after last season, I don't think anybody can have any concerns about how old he's going to do. I think he's going to flourish. And if it weren't for the fact that he's in his late 20s, he would probably be a guy you're looking at as being a $15-20 million transfer out of Olympiacos. Thankfully, I think he's probably past that point. And I hope that we can hold him for many more years. But he's really going to get to show on the big stage. And I think a lot of people are going to start to take notice.
Perhaps that's a bit of delusion on my end, but I don't see Chiquinho going, at least not anytime soon, if the only offers coming in are from goddamn Al Shabab. I am putting in Chiquinho a bit above El Kabi on the bargain side, with no disrespect to Ayub. I've talked extensively about how much I love Ayub, and I think he's up there for our best out and out striker ever. But when you think about where Chiquinho came from and with what standards he came in with, and on the other hand, where El Kabi came from and how much of a risk he was considered, without paying any mind to if that risk paid off not 1, not 10, but 1,000,000 times. That's why I'm giving the slight edge to Chiquinho, solely because of the negotiation standards that one side had compared to the other side. Solely because of that. Now, I think it's time to talk about these two. Premonides and Yachikouras. The two that Pneumonides, I think we all expected to come in. I don't think anyone expected that he'd be arguably the MVP of the preseason. I don't think anyone could have called that. I don't think anyone could have expected that we'd be talking about the new and maybe even improved Podence. I don't think anyone could have expected that we'd be talking about that potential. But he's here and he's proving it day by day. And I think maybe that's a bit too much to say already, but I think that at least in the Super League, you can't take him out of the 11. Not necessarily that much in Europe, but at least in the Super League.
I mean, I still think he'll play a role in Europe. I mean, think about some of the wingers that we pushed out in the Champions League, man. We were pulling up the Champions League matches with Lazar Andelijevic. I mean, come on. I don't think, like you said, I don't think that Pneumonides is going to be a starter this season. Obviously, with Strefetza coming in, with Gelson Martins already established, there's no reason for him to start. And you even look last season, Babis Kostulas wasn't starting every game for Olympiacos. That's not a problem, right? And especially for where he is in his career right now, it'll give him the flexibility and less pressure to be able to feel his way around playing at a higher level. But I definitely think he's going to play a big role for us this season. Coming off the bench, providing cover when needed. Like you said, he just, as we've seen with all of our young players, they just play with such intensity and such heart, even if they're not as talented as the opposition or whatever it may be. There's something to be said about the fact that you have a kid playing for his boyhood club. He's always going to give that extra, 10-15% that, some other guy who's just doing his job is going to give. So I think that, and just the way he plays. I mean, he's one of those players, he's like a Podence. He just gets involved in everything. He's always running around. He's always putting pressure. That's what we really need. I think that's where he complements some of the other wingers that we have, like a Gelson Martins, who I don't think is as involved all the time as a player like Pneumonides would be. So it's nice to have complementary skill sets. And then for the Atsoukuras, probably even bigger surprise than Pneumonides, because I think we expected him to come in and play a role, but Atsoukuras kind of came out of nowhere. Similarly to Mouzakitis and Kostulas in the sense that we didn't expect them to be as ready as they were when they were. But for the Atsoukuras, he came in with even less hype from the academy. So I think that adds an extra layer of just, him kind of being a surprise. But like Pneumonides, he brings just like a very rounded skill set to the midfield. And he doesn't seem like he's, intimidated or easily pushed around by older, bigger, more experienced players. I think that's going to be big for him, having that presence in midfield. And I think he'll probably play a much less of a role, especially in Europe, than a guy like Pneumonides, just because we have so much more depth in midfield. But I do think it's great that we'll be able to incorporate him in the Super League, in the Cup, wherever that opportunity arises. And we don't have to worry about, guys like Mouzakitis, guys like Chiquinho, like last season, we were always so worried about them playing so many matches. Now we have 6-7 midfielders who can pretty much play for you whenever. I think that's a huge benefit, and it's great too that he's from the academy. That just adds an extra layer.
The only thing that I really have to say more about Atsoukuras is that with Pneumonides, you can make the comparison to Danny, to whoever. Atsoukuras brings something to the team that as we said, it's complementary, not just to like one or two players. I think he covers off everyone in a way, if that makes sense. Like he has, for example, he has the speed that Danny has. He has the build that I meant that Danny lacks. I'm sorry. He has the build that Nascimento lacks. He has perhaps the passing ability that Scipione lacks. At least when we talk about short passing, that is because I talked about it in the report as well. Scipione has a dead eye for long balls, adding to everything else for some reason, and he's proven that already. And as you said, especially in the midfield, it's a player that won't necessarily get that much of a role, but he can come in whether you need him in Europe, whether you need him in the league, or whether you need him in the cup. He's such a flexible player when it comes to tactics, where he's useful everywhere.
Yeah.
And with the lack of hype, because he's not only rightfully earned his spot in the squad, he has proven that he did deserve way more hype than he got. With the lack of hype that he got brought up with from the academy and with zero maybe a bit harsh, but with minimal expectations of him integrating himself into Mendy's system, compared to players that will play in the beat him like a Prekates, who I eventually expect to come up. It's an even better example to strengthen the point that you and I both said before, that the production from the academy now is not only unexpected, but absolutely endless. What else? Kaloyeropoulos is someone for sure worth mentioning, because as I said, he didn't only destroy some of the best attacks in Europe in the last two games, but he was one of the two, along with Betancourt, who we all know how that ended, and I don't know how both you and me were so wrong about that game. Uh, he came in with not just the expectation, but the reports that, yeah, maybe not, and he's out here starting against Inter.
I'm going to be honest with him. I'm surprised after when he first came into the fold when he was like 16, 17. We were having a poor season, obviously, and that was why he was given such a chance. When he came in a few years ago, I remember being super impressed with him, and I was kind of expecting that he would get more of a chance than he got. But it was after that season, obviously, managers changed and all that happened. And this is back when we're buying 7,000 players a summer. He ends up going out on a few loans. I mean, I'm surprised that it took this long. I think that we could all see there was an incredible amount of potential there from a very early point, and I think now, like you said, I think it's really good that we can have him involved in that. He looks so ready as well. I mean, he took the chance, and it's to the point now. He's supposed to be our fifth center back. He could really be our fourth center back. I don't think that I would be upset with that. Obviously, we would want to buy a fifth to have extra cover, but whether that's somebody who can be better than Kalogeropoulos or whether it's somebody who, as we've seen, is maybe more of a future signing or a project, I think we're in a good spot either way. And similar to that, Kouras, I mean, he brings a build to the squad that I think is very complimentary. I mean, he is huge. I mean, like we've seen Ndoye over the past few seasons, and now he's on loan. But I mean, the biggest thing he always brought was the physicality, and I would argue that Kalogeropoulos brings even more. He's a mountain of a defender, and he's pretty athletic as well.
Much taller than though, if I'm not mistaken. So that
I mean,
adds to his. I'd say he's similarly built, but much taller than Doyle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing with him is just how sturdy he is. Because obviously, I mean, you can have tall center backs. Like we've had tall center backs who aren't necessarily built. I mean, you look at like Pape Abu Cisse or Senuba. I mean, they weren't twigs, but they weren't really built either. I mean, I think he's a good balance of both, and I think that he's going to be really useful for us this season, especially because it feels like a lot of the center backs we do have. You're thinking of Pirola, Biancone, Retsos. I mean, they're more rounded, I would say. I mean, they can obviously get very physically involved, but like he is just an out and out bruiser. And I think it's good to have a center back like that. I think that's the role that Karamo has been filling the past couple of years with him being at Nottingham now. I think it's just a very logical progression to have Kalogeropoulos fill a similar role, but he's not going to be playing as much. So I mean, I've been really impressed by him, but that's nothing new for me. I mean, I like I said, I'm surprised it took this long.
It's exactly as you said. He got both very lucky and unlucky at the same time, because he did come in. If I'm not mistaken, it was either under Pedro in his last year or second last. I think
it was his last year.
It was his last full year. And what you said is a bit ironic because, yeah, I feel the same way that, yeah, it took a long time, but he's still 21, isn't he?
I'd even be 20. Let me look it up.
Yeah, maybe even 20. Either 20 or 21.
Because I feel like when he started with us, he was like 16 or 17. No, okay, so he is 21. So he would have been 17 when he started with us.
Yeah, okay, I remember correctly, thankfully. But even that, he's 21. He's only 2 years older than Retsos back when he left. He's still one of the youngest players and the biggest prospects in the squad. And in one way, I say that the loan to Volos, the 2-year loan to Volos, not only helped him evolve as a player, but gave him such a role in the team starting, because he was not just the main guy at the back, he was one of the main guys of the team in general. I mean, he even scored one of the goals that helped them stay up last season. I don't remember who it was against, but I remember it was 1-0 with Kalogeropoulos scoring. He's gotten multiple Team of the Weeks and Man of the Matches with Volos. And it not only helped him evolve and start in a team, but he came back at just the perfect moment now that Carmo is gone. Because I feel like with Carmo in the team, perhaps he may have been a bit more lost, but now there is a perfect spot, not for him to have to take, but for him to be able to grow into. So it's honestly perfect timing for him, and it's something that he for sure deserves. We also wanted to talk a bit about a transfer that neither I or you have talked about that much, and that's Strefezza. What are your first thoughts about him? Because he's certainly a very intriguing
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what we were talking about with Pneumolidis is he is very complimentary to Gelson Martins. Obviously, those two are going to be our starters. And I think that my comparison that I made is he's a Podence similar player, but he's strong in some of the ways that Danny was weak. And I think that comes with obviously being a bit bigger, but also being more involved on both sides of the ball. I mean, he's really going to fit well into Mendilibar's system, whether that's with his pressing, whether that's tracking back. But we also, we've seen glimpses of it in the preseason. Looking back at the season he had last year, he was one of the best wingers statistically. Like he was in 90th plus percentile in a lot of really key metrics in Serie A playing for Como. I mean, he was playing for a side that I can't remember if they were newly promoted or their second year in the league. I mean, he wasn't playing for a big club. He was playing for, a bottom half side and had a very, very good season. So, I mean, I'm really excited for him. I think even though we paid a lot for our standards, I think we got a bargain because he's still in his 20s. I mean, he's just hitting his prime, and he's already had some very solid seasons in a tougher league. So I'm excited for that, and I'm just excited for the skill set that he brings. And he seems like you couldn't have found a more perfect fit for the system that we play.
And I think what is also very important about Strafezza, aside from him perfectly complementing both Zelson and Thermonidis down the other side, is that he's a very Mendilibar type of player, which we had talked about. He not only is very Danny, reminiscent at least, but we are talking about a player that can bring up the ball if needed, that has the ability to find someone inside, that has the ability to cut inside if needed. And when he needs to track back, he can track back faster than most. So I think I'm not gonna necessarily go out and say that we got a bargain. I am gonna give that a bit more time, but we certainly got one of the wingers that we desperately needed in this team. And the other player that we wanted to talk about before we close off, because you told me that you could go live for 20 minutes and I've kept you for a whole hour. It's the new guy, which I don't really. I'm not gonna go out and say that I really know that much about. But what I am seeing from this move is that perhaps our connections in Brazil and our connection with that academy that we formed earlier this summer are bigger than expected.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's not a lot coming out about him yet. But from everything I've seen, this is definitely, we mentioned it earlier, it's a bit of a risk. Maybe if you want to say it's a project signing, so it sounds a little better, that could fit as well. But I mean, this is a guy last season who was being pursued. I believe it was by Chelsea. I could be wrong there. There was a big club in Europe who wanted to buy him for 35 million euro. So he has had a lot of hype around him in the past. I think this past season was a bit underwhelming for him, which is why some of that hype has died down and why we're getting him for such a reduced price. I mean, this is a guy that was drawing comparisons to Endrick. I mean, he was seen as that next big product out of Brazil. And when you look at just his build and the way that he plays, it's very similar to Babis Costulas in some ways, with the addition of, I think from some of the videos I've seen of him playing, he has that Brazilian flair. He's super techy. These guys that grow up in the favelas and they're playing on these tiny little court fields, and like just his touch and his ability to get through defenders. That's the sort of thing that he'll bring in complement to the fact that he's a pretty tall kid. He seems like he's built pretty physically well, and he has a ton of talent and potential. It'll just be up to us to help him realize it. But I think, as we've seen the past few years with our ability to bring through even younger players, I think that it's something we should definitely be able to develop. He'll get to learn from guys like, Remy Cabella, even Mathieu Valbuena, who's now back with the club. So he'll have some really good role models, Chiquinho. So it'll be interesting to see. It's a bit of a risk, and we don't really know what kind of role he's going to have in the squad, especially since he's coming after preseason. But as always, the benefit of playing in the Super League is that we'll have the ability to give him run time in matches where, if we're playing with one player who's not fully integrated or maybe not fully used to the level yet, it's probably not going to be the end of the world for us. So it'll be interesting to see how he integrates, but there is a lot of potential and upside there. And if we are able to help him realize that, 7 million could turn out to be a bargain. But for right now, as we mentioned, it's a bit of a project and it's a bit of a risk, but we're in the position to make it. So,
first of all, I want to ask if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. Because my headphones just decided to die on me for this last 10-15 minutes. I wanted to ask one more thing, because it seems like you have way more knowledge on him than I do yet, even though we will put out a report as soon as probably gets announced, which will be in the next few days. Is he a bit reminiscent of how Babis played? Because I've seen that he can both play up front, behind the striker, and on the wings.
Yeah.
Is that at any level true or not?
So I mentioned that it might have been when your audio cut out. So he does have some similarities. I think Babis was probably a bit more athletic. Their build is very similar. I would say the difference in strength would probably be Babis was more explosive and athletic than it seems like Dalis is. But again, I could be wrong here. I've only seen limited footage on him, but where I would say it looks like Dalis has an advantage over Babis is just his technical ability. A lot of Brazilian players have just because of the environments they grow up in playing football. It looks like he has a ridiculous touch. It looks like I saw one clip of him earlier where he's like back heeling it and nutmegging 2 or 3 different players and just getting through a crowd, and it looked like he did it effortlessly. As a teenager, 20-year-old in the Brazilian league, which is not a poor quality league. I would say it's probably better quality all around than ours. So I think that there are some similarities there, but there's also some aspects of his game that are different. And it definitely doesn't seem like he's as involved scoring. So that's another place that Babis was probably more well suited. But again, I think you'll have some great role models to learn from. I think that's the benefit of having a lot of quality veterans, and why it's so good that we're able to bring guys like Valbuena, like Siovas back, even just for the B team, because they can still help mentor some of your first teamers and some of these guys like Dalis, like some of the academy kids. So there's similarities there, and it'll be interesting to see how he fits in.
Honestly, even seeing those two back is crazy, but it's just another positive of what we've been saying for the entirety of the past hour and 5, that with the way this club is heading towards in every aspect, it's unable to be grasped, especially comparatively to the past 2 years. But yeah, I'll study up way more on Dalis as well, especially given that we will probably have him for the next half a decade, unless he comes up with any insane season and gets sold off. But yeah, seeing a 5-year contract is certainly intriguing, especially for a club like us. But we'll see how that goes. Any final thoughts you want to drop on preseason in general?
No, I mean, I think we've pretty much touched on all of it. I think we're in a great spot. Obviously, first league game of the season is at home, I believe on Saturday against Asteras. So I think we're ready for that. I'm really excited for the Champions League. I'm itching to find out who we're going to play. Um, and again, I think regardless of who we get, I really do think we'll be competitive in that competition this season and continue pushing on. But I don't have any outstanding concerns. I don't understand the people that do. I think we're in a very good spot, and I'm excited for it all to get started.
I feel like excited is an understatement because God does it feel like it's been an absolute decade ever since the last competitive month. Yeah, I think we touched on certainly more than you were expecting, but I think we touched on absolutely everything that we had to and that we wanted to. Perhaps not as organized as usual, but this show has its chaos as well and will always make it work better than even we expect sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
So, go on. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say episode 100, we ended up taking it over an hour. I think it's only fitting.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Even though I feel like on episodes where we both make it on, I don't think any of them have been any less than at least 50.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. After a point, I'll let you go relax a bit, man. And next show will hopefully be on Wednesday with either a report for Dallas or just some more general comments. And then, as the season is getting back to normal, stuff on this show is going to get back to normal as well. It feels amazing to be back. Hopefully, great news keep coming, but the certain thing is that great plans will keep coming. Thank you.